Have you ever been told not to quit, regardless of what it's been that you were trying to accomplish? There's always somebody that has told you not to quit. Don't quit. Quitting's not an option, right? Well, according to research and statistics, it shows that 90% of people usually quit their personal goals. They usually show the statistics around New Year's resolutions. They usually show, how people start something in the beginning of the year, and even before the end of January, they already quit. 90%, according to Psychology Today. When I think about quitting, it reminds me of the beautiful mountains here in Los Angeles. Yes, we have mountains. I know when you think of Los Angeles, you think of Hollywood, Santa Monica Beach, Disneyland, the Dodgers, the Lakers, all the great things that Los Angeles represents, right? But we also have mountains. And I want to share a quick little story with you regarding the mountains that are very close to me. When I first came home from prison back in 2003, I had this sense of just wanting to be one with nature, not all crazy or anything like that, but I just wanted to enjoy the outdoors after being confined so much. And I was being introduced to the internet. And I remember locating this place that's here in our local mountains in Los Angeles County. It's approximately it's literally a 45-minute drive to the parking lot. And what happened is I remember seeing how beautiful these mountains were. There was these little portions of ponds, that were connected to the river that was coming down the mountain, and it was called the Bridge to Nowhere. This Bridge to Nowhere is a solid concrete bridge just going into the mountains. I mean, there's literally, when they say the Bridge to Nowhere, it just literally goes into like a mountain, not a tunnel or anything like that, just a mountain. It just stops at the base of the mountain. And up there, they have people that bungee jump. They have people playing down there in the ponds and stuff, and just looks really beautiful, right? So I said, I want to go. So on my way up to the mountain from the parking lot, we drive up, we get to the parking lot, and we load up our backpacks and we begin our mission. As we're going, though, we're following this trail, and I had read that there was going to be some interactions having to cross water. I didn't know how much water. I figured if it's a hiking trail, there's probably a bridge or something going over water. But unfortunately, as you travel up this path, right, you got to cross this lake that's probably anywhere from like 4 to 5 feet deep. Literally, you're like up to your neck in water trying to stick to this path. And when you think you cross this path and then you get to another section of this river and you're walking on the trail for a while, the trail goes right into the water again. And this happens probably like 5 or 6 times where you have to cross over. There's some sections where there's a log that has been, a tree is knocked down and you're able to walk on that dead tree, right? But majority of the time you have to walk through the water. Um, Case being that I went in springtime when it wasn't too cold, it wasn't too hot, but still getting in that water was kind of, it was a little chilly. The long story short is this, though. I had the vision in my mind. I wanted to get there. I was like, you know what? Let's go. Later on, I found out that it's 5 miles from the parking lot to the actual bridge to nowhere. And then it's 5 miles back in. So total 10 miles, right? Doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're walking through this water, you're wet. And not only that, though, as you walk on this trail, there's different portions where you're just walking in straight sun for, maybe 30 minutes or so. You're just in sun. So if you go during summertime, you're going to be blazing in this heat, right? And then there's times where you're walking under a few bushes, and then there's hills, and then there's rocks you got to get over. And it's not an easy trail. Actually, on the trail map, it actually says that it's a hard hiking trail. So that in itself is telling you to prepare for something, right? So as I'm walking up this path, and it's real slippery at times, and like I said, you got to like climb over rocks, and it gets really hard. And then we hit this valley. It looks like we're just walking in the open now. And I hit this valley. When I say valley, it's like, there's mountains in front of you, and then you're just walking along this path, and there's things on the right and to the left of you. and you see this sign and it says welcome to Rattlesnake Canyon, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, Rattlesnake Canyon. And that first experience really tripped me out because I thought that was just the name of it. But as we walked through this trail, we came across a few different rattlesnakes, and I was like, "Oh wow, there really is rattlesnakes right here, right?" So I'm walking through, and we just kind of navigated away from the snakes. And let me just tell you this: along this trail, I seen a lot of people walking back, and I would ask them. I said, "Did you guys make it to the bridge to nowhere?" And they were like, "Nah, we got lost on the path." And I was like, "Oh, all right. Is it like, do you know how far the bridge is from here?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's like another 3.5 miles or something." So I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna keep going." And the more I walked, the more people were coming down. And the report was over and over again. Yeah, we got lost. No, we didn't make it. Ran out of water. It's starting to get dark. Just all these different excuses why they're turning around. And finally, I start to get closer, and there's people that are coming down, and they start telling me, "Yeah, I made it," because I'm asking them, "Did you guys make it to the bridge?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's beautiful up there." And they're telling me if you walk a little bit off trail to the right, probably like maybe 20 minutes, you're going to bump into a waterfall. It's the most beautiful thing you're going to see in these mountains. And I'm like, all right, I'll check it out. And by this time, I'm tired. My feet are hurting. And let me just tell you this as well, is I have a messed up knee. I tore my ACL. My meniscus is damaged. But I'm still wanting to get to the top of this mountain to see this bridge to nowhere. So I'm still hiking. I get to the section where they said drift off a little bit. So I drift off the path, which the path itself was already hard. And now I'm just walking along bushes, and I'm like, man, I'm watching out for rattlesnakes, and I come across this waterfall that was so beautiful. And the friend that was with me was like, wow, I would have never thought there was a waterfall like this in these parts of the mountains, right? And so we stay there for a little bit, cool off a little bit. We get back on the path, and then we finally make it up. I think it was probably maybe like 4 or 5 hours later. I mean, we were taking our time because of my hurt knee. But when we got to the top and we're right there on the bridge, there wasn't a lot of people there. And I was like, where's everybody at? In the videos and stuff that I seen of this location, I seen people under this bridge, bungee jumping, and looked like they were having a good time. But I think there was maybe two other people up there. They were just resting before they made their way back down. And I share this story with you because it reminded me, of my journey trying to fight for my freedom. For you that don't know, I was a young 16-year-old gang member tried here in the beautiful city of Los Angeles County for, very violent crime as a young boy being involved in gangs. And a part of my sentence was 45 years to life. And during that time here in California, during the, late 80s, 90s, early 2000s, um, the saying was if you were there on a life term, you weren't coming home unless you were in a box, meaning unless you died in there, you weren't coming home. And throughout my incarceration, a lot of people would tell me, like, man, that sucks. You're never going home. You might as well just quit, trying to do whatever you're trying to do, because something happened to me while I was incarcerated. I had a spiritual awakening where the Lord Jesus Christ set me free from that gang mentality, that violent mentality. And it was all new to me, this Christian walk. And what happens is, God was just so merciful to me and so gracious to me. And he literally like set my heart free. It wasn't just a jailhouse religion. It wasn't just, me running away from what was going on in there. It was actually a moment of clarity for me and spiritual awakening, because I had just got done doing something, violent within the jail. You would think I would have learned my lesson, being in jail, but yet I chose to still continue and find myself in the prison of the prisons. And it was there that God started to speak to my heart, and he really, really started to give me a glimpse of hope when there seemed to be no hope, when there seemed no reason to do the right thing, when it seemed no reason to go against the flow of traffic within the prison. because it could be very scary when you're walking alone after being a gang member, after having a reputation, after having some sort of say so. And now I walked away from that and I'm literally on my own with the Lord Jesus Christ. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I would be shunned. I didn't know if I would be disrespected or try to take advantage of, or I didn't know what the outcomes were, but I knew that what happened in my heart in that prison cell, when I asked God to forgive me, there was a radical change that took place. And I guess it was evident to everyone around me because for the most part, they showed me respect. They literally, like, a lot of them even tried to protect me from a lot of stuff that was going on in there, looking out for me, showing me love is what it's called. And I continue to go to school. I continue to learn a trade. I continue to do self-help meetings and really do what I thought I needed to do to one day come home and be successful. But through all of that, I had so many people in their negative telling me, why even go to college? Why even try to learn a trade? You ain't never getting out. And this is coming from the same people that are still gang banging, still about all the racial tension in there, still doing nothing with themselves, besides doing time. While I was in there trying to educate my mind, trying to figure out my purpose and my calling in God. And you know what? I'm glad I didn't quit. I'm glad I didn't quit because after close to 13 and a half years, the Lord gave me a second chance. He opened them doors for me that man couldn't open. And since 2003, I've been out here helping people that find themselves in that same trap, going into prisons today, helping families, just being involved with people's lives. And let me say this very clearly, that I couldn't have did it alone. I had a lot of good mentors. I had my wife, I had my father, I had my son. I had a lot of people in my corner that were helping me every step of the way. The only thing that could have stopped my success was myself and being prideful and thinking I could do it on my own. But I surrendered not only to the Lord Jesus Christ, but to them that wanted to help me, them that knew better, them that had already been successful. And here I am trying to be successful. And it was a transition of a lot of frustration, a lot of distress, because I didn't know, um, the process. I didn't know the timing of, I think when I came home, I was trying to play a lot of catch up. Who I was trying to catch up to, I have no idea. But I know right away I wanted a job, I wanted a bank account, I wanted a car, I wanted all these things. But what I realized that, I just had to be patient and trust people, that were guiding me and instructing me. And especially my wife, who's always been in my corner. She's always been there. She's always been patient with me as I go through the learning curve because it was hard. You imagine just being 16 years old, and all of a sudden, here I am, almost 32 years, 32 years older, and I'm like, there was a lot of fear, a lot of frustration. But what I want to share with you right now in this closing is that it took a lot of people to uphold me and walk me through the process in order for me to get to where I'm at today. I couldn't have did it on my own. And it was them family members while incarcerated that were telling me not to quit, keep doing good. Even when everyone else is doing wrong around you, you keep doing good. You keep learning. You keep moving forward. So my statement to you today is to keep moving forward and don't quit no matter what, no matter the obstacles, no matter how hard, your trail gets in life. When people start telling you that it can't be done, when they start telling you, man, might as well make a U-turn, when they start telling you, you know what, man, um, no need in going further, just, go back the way you were coming. Don't listen to that and keep moving forward. I'm telling you, when I got to that bridge to nowhere, there was a sense of accomplishment. There was a sense of walking through them rattlesnakes, walking up them hills, walking through that water, walking, in directions that there was no path, and it gets scary, but you know what? You got to keep going to make it to that bridge. Wherever you're trying to get to, do not quit. The reward is so amazing.